Dust settled on the weathered porch of Martha Calloway's store as townsfolk passed without a glance. At 45, the widow had become invisible in Dover Springs, a frontier town where women half her age were considered past their prime. The whispers followed her like shadows. Too old, too plain, too stubborn. Yet Martha stood tall, her silver-streaked hair and lined face testaments to a life fully lived. She knew her worth even as the town forgot it. When the band of Apache traders arrived, their leader's obsidian eyes found hers across the crowded street. In that moment, something shifted. Could a woman scorned by her own people find acceptance in the heart of a so-called enemy? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if the story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn broke over Dover Springs, painting the weathered sign of Calloway General Store in amber light. Martha's fingers traced the worn gold band on her left hand as she prepared for another day. 5 years a widow, yet Thomas remained with her in the wooden beams he'd cut, the counter he'd polished, the life they'd built. She splashed cold water on her face, studying the reflection that Dover Springs had deemed worthless. Lines mapped journeys around her eyes, silver threaded through chestnut hair that fell past shoulders still straight with dignity. At 45, Martha knew she wasn't old, merely inconvenient to a town that preferred its women decorative and compliant. "Just us again today, Thomas?" she murmured to the empty room, a ritual that comforted rather than saddened. She pinned her hair, donned a simple blue dress, and stepped into her domain. The store smelled of coffee, leather, and possibility. Shelves stocked with everything from horseshoe nails to imported French soap. Martha took pride in anticipating needs before they arose, ordering catalog items that brought civilization's comforts to the frontier. The bell above the door jangled as Nettie hobbled in, ancient and bent but sharp-eyed as a hawk. "Morning comes whether we want it or not," the elderly Paiute woman greeted, setting a bundle of herbs on the counter. Martha smiled genuinely for the first time that day. "More willow bark? Your arthritis bothering you? Not for me. For your stores. Storm in the mountains means rain coming. Rain means aches. Aches mean folks needing medicine." Nettie tapped her temple. "I think ahead. Like you." Their friendship was unlikely, an Indian woman most townsfolk ignored and a widow they actively scorned. Yet both understood invisibility's strange power. They saw each other clearly. "Mayor's wife was in Leighton's dress shop yesterday," Nettie said, examining a tin of tobacco. "Telling everyone your store smells musty, like old woman and disappointment." Martha's hands stilled on the ledger. "Lillian Thompson is 23 with nothing to do but spend her husband's money and spread poison. She said only desperate spinsters and Indians shop here." Martha raised an eyebrow. "Then I'm in excellent company." The bell rang again. "Speak of the devil." Mayor Thompson entered, his substantial belly preceding him. At 58, his age earned him respect while Martha's earned contempt. "Mrs. Calloway," he nodded curtly. His gaze slid past Nettie as though she were furniture. "Quarterly tax assessment. Town's growing. Improvements needed." He handed Martha a document. "Amounts due end of month." Martha scanned the paper, her face carefully neutral despite the figure being nearly double last quarter's assessment. "Seems steep for a business you claim is failing, Mayor Thompson." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Speaking of failing, Silas Reed mentioned your property again. His offer stands. Prime location for his new cattle offices. This store isn't for sale. Be reasonable, Martha. Woman alone can't maintain a business this size." Reed's being generous considering His eyes traveled dismissively over her circumstances. After he left, Nettie spat ceremoniously into the spittoon. "Snake-wearing boots." "It's not personal," Martha said, though they both knew it was. "I'm sitting on the best commercial lot in town. They've wanted it since Thomas passed." "Personal enough." Young wife whispers, old husband acts. Nettie gathered her things. "They come after what's yours, they make it about what you are. Not the land. Remember that." Martha walked her elderly friend to the door. Outside, townsfolk hurried past without looking in. Women her age were married or widowed into their children's homes, invisible in different ways. None owned businesses. None stood alone. Heard Apache coming to trade, Nettie said suddenly. First time in 3 summers. The town council approved this? Need horses. Drought killed cavalry stock. Apache have best horses on frontier. Nettie's weathered face creased. Chief sends his best medicine man to lead trading. Proud man. Old ways. Martha nodded, watching Dover Springs wake fully into morning. Children raced toward the schoolhouse. Men clustered outside the barber shop. Ladies with parasols strolled arm in arm, carefully avoiding her storefront. Town won't like Indians camping close, Martha observed. Nettie's laugh was dry as rustling leaves. Town doesn't like you either. Maybe you and Apache both know something town forgot. As Nettie shuffled away, Martha straightened her shoulders and turned back to her ledgers. One more day of stubborn survival. One more day of proving her worth to people determined not to see it. The worn wedding ring caught the morning light. Some battles, Thomas used to say, you fight by simply refusing to surrender. 3 days later, Dover Springs hummed with nervous energy. Martha watched from her doorway as townspeople gathered in the square. Children were hushed by anxious mothers. Men checked pistols at their sides, and Mayor Thompson strutted importantly in his Sunday suit despite it being Tuesday. The Apache delegation was coming. Martha had heard the whispers all morning as customers stockpiled supplies, as though preparing for siege rather than a sanctioned trading visit. 5 Apache warriors, the rumors said, coming with 20 horses, staying 3 days. Lock your doors at night, Mrs. Hargrove had warned while buying extra lamp oil. Indians can't be trusted, especially around women. Her gaze had lingered meaningfully on Martha. Though I suppose at your age you're safe enough. Martha had simply counted Mrs. Hargrove's change and held her tongue. Now, as noon approached, a cloud of dust appeared on the eastern road. Martha stepped fully onto her porch, one hand shading her eyes. The tension in the square was palpable as 5 riders came into view. They rode proudly, back straight as lodgepole pines. 4 younger warriors flanked an older man whose silver-streaked black hair was longer than the others, with a single eagle feather secured at the crown. A turquoise medicine pouch hung at his side, catching sunlight as he moved. Unlike the others who rode with minimal tack, his saddle was adorned with symbols Martha couldn't decipher from a distance. Sheriff Davis and Mayor Thompson stepped forward as the Apache riders halted at the square's edge. The lead rider dismounted with fluid grace that belied his years. Martha guessed him to be around 50, though weathering made ages difficult to determine for those who lived beneath the open sky. Welcome to Dover Springs. Mayor Thompson's voice carried across the square, pompous and too loud. I am Mayor Thompson. We have prepared a camp area beyond the smithy. Your horses can be corralled there. The Apache leader nodded once. I am Hawken, he replied in clear, accented English that surprised the crowd. Medicine man of the Ndee. We bring horses as agreed. A murmur rippled through the townsfolk. Few had expected the savage to speak English. We will inspect the horses, Sheriff Davis said gruffly. Before any trading begins. Hawken's expression remained neutral, though something flashed in his obsidian eyes. As you wish. They are finest horses. Chosen personally. Mayor Thompson began explaining the town's rules for the Apache visit, where they could go, when trading would happen, which areas were forbidden. Martha listened with growing discomfort at the condescension in his tone. Then suddenly, unexpectedly, Hawken turned his head and looked directly at her. Martha felt a jolt of something unfamiliar. Not fear, though perhaps it should have been. Recognition, perhaps. His gaze held hers for only seconds before returning to the mayor, but in that brief moment, Martha felt truly seen for the first time in years. As the formalities concluded, the crowd began to disperse. The Apache riders followed Sheriff Davis toward their designated camping area, but Hawken paused. He reached into his medicine pouch and removed something small. With deliberate steps, he approached Martha's store. Townsfolk froze, watching. Martha stood her ground. Water, he said simply, holding out a small leather pouch. For your kindness. Martha blinked, confused. My kindness. The Paiute grandmother. She says you treat her with respect when others do not. This water comes from sacred spring. Good medicine. Before Martha could respond, Mayor Thompson inserted himself between them. Now see here, he blustered. You people stick to the designated areas. Mrs. Calloway doesn't need your trinkets. Hawkins' face remained impassive, but Martha saw something harden in his eyes. Without a word, he placed the leather pouch on the edge of her porch and turned away. Wait, Martha called, surprising herself. She stepped forward, past the mayor, and picked up the pouch. Thank you. Please tell your people they're welcome to trade in my store. Mayor Thompson sputtered. Mrs. Calloway. The town council agreed all trading would be conducted in the square under supervision. The town council doesn't dictate who can enter my establishment, Mr. Mayor. Martha met his glare steadily. Unless there's been a new ordinance I'm unaware of? The mayor's face reddened, but he had no legal grounds to object. With a curt nod to Hawken, he stormed off. Hawken studied Martha with newfound interest. You are not afraid? Of the mayor's disapproval? I'm quite used to it. The faintest smile touched his lips. I meant of me. Martha considered the question seriously. No, she realized. I'm not. He nodded as though she'd confirmed something important. I will bring my people to trade tomorrow. He glanced at her sign. Calloway. Martha, she offered. Martha Calloway. Martha, he repeated, the name taking on a different music in his accent. With a slight inclination of his head that felt more respectful than the mayor's elaborate welcomes, he turned and followed his companions. Martha watched him go, the small leather pouch cool in her palm, aware of curious eyes watching from every window and doorway in Dover Springs. The next morning brought unexpected rain, drumming steadily on Martha's roof and emptying Dover Springs streets. She'd just finished arranging a display of tin cups when the bell jangled. Hawkins stood in her doorway, water glistening on his shoulders, a leather satchel clutched in one hand. Your friends not joining you? Martha asked, noting he was alone. They trade horses with your sheriff. Hawkins shook water from his hair. I come for different things. He approached the counter and opened his satchel, revealing an assortment of dried plants, roots, and berries. Medicine supplies. Your store has things I need. Martha's interest was piqued. You're truly a healer then, not just a title? Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. As you are truly a widow, not just a word people use? Martha smiled despite herself. Fair enough. What supplies do you need? As Hawken listed items, alcohol for tinctures, clean bandages, specific glass bottles, Martha realized he possessed sophisticated knowledge of healing arts. She gathered his requests, adding, I have willow bark already ground if that would save you time. Hawken looked up sharply. You know plant medicine? Some. My mother was a midwife, and I've learned from Nettie, the Paiute woman. Grandmother Nettie is wise. Her people were great healers before. He trailed off diplomatically. Before mine arrived, Martha finished. Hawken nodded, studying her with new interest. From his satchel, he produced a small bundle of dried leaves. This grows in mountains east. Good for chest sickness when winter comes. Trade. Martha accepted the herbs, examining them carefully. I've not seen these before. How are they prepared? As Hawken explained, Martha realized they were engaged in the most stimulating conversation she'd had in years. Thomas had respected her intelligence, but few others in Dover Springs acknowledged women had minds worth engaging. The bell jangled again as Mrs. Preston and her daughter Sophia entered, shaking off rain. They froze at the sight of Hawken. Mrs. Calloway. Mrs. Preston clutched her reticule tighter. We can return later if you're occupied. No need, Martha replied calmly. Mr. Hawken is simply conducting business. Sophia Preston, barely 20 and Dover Springs' acknowledged beauty, stared openly. You speak their language, Mrs. Calloway? Mr. Hawken speaks English quite well, Martha replied. Better than some born to it. How fascinating. Mrs. Preston's tone suggested it was anything but. Come along, Sophia. We'll return when the store is less exotic. After they departed, Hocken commented, They fear me. They fear difference, Martha corrected, returning to their interrupted conversation. About this herb, you mentioned it needs cooking in clay, not iron? Hocken nodded, visibly appreciative of her focus on the medicine rather than the interruption. He reached into his satchel again and produced several more bundles of dried plants. These others, you know them? For the next hour, they exchanged knowledge of healing plants. Martha showed him her own collection of dried herbs, carefully preserved in the storeroom. Hocken demonstrated how certain combinations created more powerful medicines than individual plants alone. You have healer's hands, he observed as Martha measured dried elderberry into a paper twist. Strong but gentle, like water wearing stone. The compliment caught her off guard. I'm simply practical. Practice comes from many seasons of learning, he countered. Many seasons bring wisdom. Your people strange, they value new things, new faces. My people value what has lasted, what has endured. Martha thought about Dover Spring's dismissal of her as too old at 45, while this man saw her experience as an asset. Your wife, she ventured carefully. Does she practice medicine too? A shadow crossed his face. She walks with ancestors now. 7 winters passed. I'm sorry. Martha's hand moved instinctively to her wedding ring. It's not an easy path. No. His gaze met hers with unexpected warmth. But paths sometimes cross when needed. The bell rang again as the door opened, this time admitting Mayor Thompson and Sheriff Davis, both scowling beneath dripping hats. Mrs. Calloway, the mayor said tersely. A word outside, if you please. We're in the middle of a transaction, Martha replied. And it's raining. Now, Mrs. Calloway. The mayor's tone left no room for argument. With an apologetic glance at Hocken, Martha followed Thompson onto the covered porch. Rain pounded the awning above them. This is inappropriate, Thompson hissed. Having that savage alone in your store. Mr. Hocken is a customer, like any other. He is not like any other. What will people think? A widow alone with an Indian. Martha's patience snapped. They'll think what they always think, Mayor, whatever small-minded nonsense suits them. Now excuse me. Unlike some, I have a business to run. She turned to re-enter her store, but Thompson caught her arm. This isn't about your store, Martha. It's about what's proper, what's safe, what's right for Dover Springs' reputation. Martha gently but firmly removed his hand. I believe I'm a better judge of what's right for me than you are, Mr. Mayor. Inside, she found Hocken carefully wrapping his purchases in oilcloth. His face revealed nothing, but Martha suspected he'd heard every word. Same time tomorrow? She asked, surprising herself with her boldness. I have other herbs to show you. Hocken's eyes met hers, deep and unreadable. Tomorrow, he agreed quietly. After he left, Martha stood in her empty store, heart racing from her defiance. Wondering what path she'd just set her feet upon, word spread through Dover Springs like wildfire. By noon, Martha's store stood empty of customers, a conspicuous silence replacing the usual steady trickle of trade. Through her windows, she watched townsfolk cross the street rather than walk past her door, throwing furtive glances in her direction. The letter arrived with the afternoon mail delivery. Martha recognized Mayor Thompson's florid handwriting on the envelope, and her stomach tightened as she broke the official seal. Mrs. Martha Calloway, it has come to the attention of the Dover Springs Town Council that you have engaged in inappropriate conduct unbecoming a respectable widow and business owner. Your fraternization with the Apache visitor presents concerns regarding public safety and moral standing. Furthermore, assessment of town development needs indicates your property has been designated for potential commercial expansion. As such, an emergency town meeting will convene Friday evening at 7 o'clock to discuss both matters. Your attendance is strongly encouraged. Regards, Mayor Harold Thompson. Martha's hands trembled, though more with anger than fear. Commercial expansion. So that was their new tactic. The bell jangled, startling her. Silas Reed stood in the doorway, his cattleman's bulk filling the space. Behind him loomed two ranch hands, faces shadowed beneath wide-brimmed hats. "Afternoon, Mrs. Calloway." Reed removed his hat with exaggerated courtesy. "Fine day, ain't it?" Martha tucked the letter into her pocket. "What can I help you with, Mr. Reed?" "Heard you received some correspondence from the mayor." Reed smiled, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. "Thought I might save you some trouble." "How considerate." Reed placed a folded document on the counter. "Deed transfer. Already filled out. Just needs your signature." Martha didn't touch it. "My store isn't for sale." $10,000, Mrs. Calloway. "Generous, considering." "Considering what?" Reed's smile vanished. "Considering nobody's walking through that door since you decided to make friends with savages. Considering your roof needs replacing come winter. Considering a woman your age should be thinking about comfort in her remaining years, not struggling to maintain a failing business." Martha's voice remained steady. "Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mr. Reed?" Reed leaned forward, planting meaty palms on her counter. "Don't be difficult, Martha. Thompson's determined to see this through. There's talk of raising your business taxes, fire safety inspections, health ordinances." He shrugged. "Lots of ways a town can make operating a store challenging." "Are you threatening me, Mr. Reed?" "Advising you, as a friend." He straightened. "Think it over. Offer stands until the town meeting. After that," he gestured vaguely, "who knows what your property might be worth." After Reed departed, Martha locked the door and hung the closed sign. Her hands shook as she poured herself a medicinal measure of whiskey from a bottle Thomas had kept for special occasions. A soft knock at the back door startled her. She hesitated, then approached cautiously. "Who is it?" "Nettie," came the reply. "Not alone." Martha opened the door to find the elderly Paiute woman accompanied by Hakan. Nettie looked grim, Hakan expressionless. "You heard," Martha said. It wasn't a question. Nettie nodded. "Whole town talking. Say you entertaining Indian man. Say it's shameful. Come in quickly." Martha ushered them inside, locking the door behind them. Hakan stood with military stillness, discomfort evident despite his controlled features. "I bring trouble to your door. Not my intention." "You've brought nothing but courtesy and fair trade," Martha countered. "The trouble comes from small minds, not you." She showed them the mayor's letter. Nettie spat on the floor in disgust, while Hakan read it carefully. "They want your land," he observed. "Use me as excuse. They've wanted it for years." Martha poured tea for Nettie, offered some to Hakan, who declined with a small gesture. "My husband chose this location carefully. It's the best commercial lot in town, corner property, near the stage stop, first building travelers see when arriving." "Town meeting be trap," Nettie warned. "They shame you public. Make example." Martha nodded grimly. "I expect so." "We leave tomorrow," Hakan said quietly. "Trading finished. My presence causes you difficulty." "Your presence reveals their true character," Martha corrected. "There's a difference." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, recognition of shared dignity in the face of scorn. The silence was broken by the sound of shattering glass. Martha rushed to the front of the store to find a rock lying amid broken window fragments. Outside, several teenage boys ran away laughing. Hakan appeared at her side, his body tensing like a drawn bow. "You not safe here. It's just boys being cruel," Martha said, though her voice lacked conviction. Nettie joined them, her ancient eyes taking in the broken glass. "Not just boys. Town gives permission with silence." As Martha swept up the glass, Hakan knelt to help, their hands occasionally brushing. She noticed a small wound on his palm where he'd picked up a shard. "You're hurt," she said, taking his hand without thinking. The contact seemed to surprise them both. "Small thing," he replied, but didn't withdraw his hand. Martha retrieved a clean cloth and her medicine box. As she gently cleaned the cut, she felt his eyes on her face. "Why you not afraid?" he asked quietly. "Most white women see monster when they look at Apache." Martha applied a salve of her own making to his cut. "I see a person who's shown me more respect in 2 days than this town has in 5 years. His other hand suddenly, tentatively, touched a strand of silver in her hair. "Where I come from, white in hair means wisdom earned. Beauty deepened." He withdrew his hand quickly, as if remembering himself. "Your people see strangely." Martha felt warmth rising to her cheeks, unused to such directness. "Tomorrow," she said, changing the subject. "What time do you leave?" "First light. Come before you go. I'll have supplies ready for your journey." What she didn't say was that she simply wanted to see him one more time. Dawn had barely broken when Martha heard the sound of horses outside. She'd been awake for hours, preparing parcels of dried meat, cornmeal, and her special healing salve. A small carved wooden bird, Thomas's last gift to her, lay beside the packages. She'd decided during the night to give it to Håkon, though she couldn't fully explain why, even to herself. She unbolted the back door to find Håkon already dismounted, his horse's reins loose in his hand. In the soft light, she noticed details she'd missed before. A thin scar tracing his jawline, the slight silver at his temples, the depth of lines etched around his eyes. Not youth, but strength tempered by experience. "You come early," she said, suddenly self-conscious of her loose hair and simple morning dress. "Trail long ahead." His eyes remained respectfully on her face. "Wanted to say words before going." Martha gathered her composure. "I have supplies for your journey." She handed him the carefully wrapped packages. "And this." She held out the wooden bird, feeling foolish now. "My husband carved it. It's not valuable, but has value," Håkon corrected, taking it with unexpected gentleness. "Memory has greatest value." He examined the bird's smooth lines. "Good hands made this." "Yes," Martha agreed softly. "The best hands." Håkon reached into his medicine pouch and withdrew something wrapped in soft leather. "Trade." He placed it in her palm, a small pendant of polished turquoise set in silver. "Protection. Also memory." Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and Martha felt a flutter of something long forgotten. Before she could respond, a crash from the front of the store shattered the moment. Martha hurried through the storeroom to find her front display window broken, a brick lying amid shards of glass and her prized porcelain vase in pieces. Through the jagged opening, she saw Mayor Thompson's son Harry and 2 other young men, already mounting their horses. "Old witch," Harry called. "That's what happens to Indian lovers." Martha stood frozen as the vandals rode away, laughing. Håkon appeared beside her, surveying the destruction with a hardened expression. "You cannot stay here alone," he said, voice low and tight. "I have nowhere else to go. This store is all I have." Martha knelt to gather the shattered pieces of her vase, a wedding gift that had survived the journey west, only to be destroyed by senseless cruelty. A tear splashed onto a porcelain shard. She brushed it away quickly, embarrassed by the display of weakness. Håkon crouched beside her, his presence solid and steady. "Men who attack women prove themselves small," he said quietly. "In my tribe, such men would be shamed." Martha carefully placed the broken pieces on the counter, her hands steadier now. In Dover Springs, they're called high-spirited youths. The store bell jangled as Sheriff Davis entered, hand resting casually on his holster. His eyes narrowed at the sight of Håkon. "Thought I might find you here," he said to the Apache. "Your people are waiting to depart." "Window broken," Håkon replied evenly, "by Thompson boy and friends." The sheriff glanced dismissively at the damage. "Lots of wild stories going around town, Mrs. Calloway. Folks are upset." "About a broken window?" Martha asked. "About a respectable widow entertaining a savage in her store. Alone." His emphasis on the last word made its implication clear. Martha felt heat rise to her face. "Mr. Håkon has been nothing but respectful, which is more than I can say for the respectable men of this town who destroy property and threaten women." The sheriff's jaw tightened. Now see here. No, you see, Martha interrupted, surprising herself with her vehemence. Mayor Thompson's son just committed vandalism in plain sight. Will you arrest him? Or does law in Dover Springs only apply to certain people? Careful, Mrs. Calloway. Folks already questioning your judgment. Wouldn't want them questioning your sanity too. Hawkins stepped forward, his movement causing the sheriff to tense. I go now, but remember this woman stands alone against many, yet does not bend. Shows more courage than men who hide behind badges and break windows in darkness. Sheriff Davis's hand tightened on his holster. That sounds like a threat, Indian. Truth, not threat. Hawkins' voice remained calm, though Martha sensed the tension coiled within him. Apache value courage, honor truth, respect elders. Your town could learn. Your kind has until noon to be clear of Dover Springs, the sheriff snapped. Council's orders. After that, we consider you hostile. After the sheriff stalked out, Martha turned to Hawkins. You should go. Quickly. You not safe. I've survived worse than broken windows. She managed a smile. Dover Springs needs its only female shopkeeper more than they'll admit. Hawkins studied her face intently. You have warrior spirit, like Apache woman. I'm just stubborn. My husband always said so. Stubborn keeps you standing when others fall. He reached out, hesitating before lightly touching her silver-streaked hair. This, we call it wisdom marks. Sign of respect. Martha felt the gentle touch like a physical shock, awareness spreading through her that had nothing to do with age or propriety. Hawkins withdrew his hand. I return in 1 moon to trade again. Council agreed already. The promise hung between them, unexpected and weighted with meaning neither could fully acknowledge. I'll have your herbs ready, Martha replied, the simple statement carrying its own promise. As Hawkins mounted his horse, he looked back once. Be watchful, Martha Calloway. Some men fear strong women more than enemy warriors. She stood in her doorway, turquoise pendant clutched in her palm, watching until he disappeared from view. Only then did she allow herself to wonder what had just awakened within her, and what price she might pay for it. The town meeting proved every bit as humiliating as Martha had anticipated. Standing before Dover Springs' assembled citizens, she endured Mayor Thompson's pompous lecture about moral standards and community values. Whispers followed her as she left the hall, her back straight despite the burning shame of public censure. The vote had been unanimous except for her own objection. Martha's property was officially designated for community commercial development. She had 6 months to sell voluntarily before the town would exercise its newly created authority to claim the land through eminent domain. 2 weeks later, Martha's store remained conspicuously empty of customers. The whispers had evolved into outright snubs. Ladies who had frequented her establishment now made the journey to Layton's general store 3 blocks away, despite higher prices and inferior selection. Only Nettie remained loyal, appearing each morning with herbs from the hills or news gathered from her unique position as Dover Springs' invisible observer. Apache camp 10 miles south. Nettie announced one quiet afternoon, arranging roots on Martha's counter. By Old Creek bed. Martha's hands stilled on her ledger. I thought they'd returned to their territory. Some go, some stay. Him stay. Nettie's shrewd eyes missed nothing. Want to talk to spirits of mountains, he say. Old Paiute man at reservation tell me different. What did he tell you? Say Apache medicine man ask many questions about widow who owns store in town. Nettie's weathered face creased in a knowing smile. Say he carve small things from wood while asking. Martha felt warmth rising to her cheeks. That doesn't mean anything. Mean enough to keep proud Apache man camped alone in enemy territory. Nettie gathered her basket. He come tonight. My cabin. After dark. Martha's heart leapt before caution asserted itself. That would be unwise for all of us. Wisdom sometimes walks dangerous path. Nettie shrugged. You come or not come. Your choice. After the elderly woman departed, Martha stood in her empty store, the turquoise pendant warm against her skin where she'd worn it hidden beneath her high collar. She told herself it was merely appreciation for its craftsmanship, not the man who gave it. Dusk brought decision. Martha locked her store early and walked briskly toward the edge of town, a basket of medicines ostensibly meant for Nettie providing her excuse. Few noticed her passing. Those who did quickly looked away, her status as social pariah now firmly established. Nettie's cabin sat nestled among cottonwoods where town gave way to wilderness. As Martha approached, she saw smoke curling from the chimney and 2 horses tethered in the shadows. Her steps faltered, suddenly aware of boundaries she was about to cross. Before she could reconsider, the door opened. Hawkins stood silhouetted against the warm light within, tall and unexpectedly familiar despite their brief acquaintance. "You came," he said simply. Martha nodded, unable to find suitable words for this unsuitable situation. Inside, Nettie stirred something fragrant over the fire. "Sit, eat, talk. Old women sleep early. Leave young ones to words." "I'm hardly young," Martha protested automatically. "Young enough," Nettie muttered. "Old enough to know better, young enough to do anyway." Over bowls of rabbit stew, Martha described the town meeting and its aftermath. Hawkins listened intently, his dark eyes reflecting firelight. "They take your land because of me," he said finally. "They take it because they've always wanted it," Martha corrected. "You were merely convenient justification. Still, I bring trouble. Trouble found me long before you arrived." Martha's smile held irony. Apparently a woman who insists on independence rather than remarriage or dependence on children is deeply threatening to Dover Springs. "My people not perfect," Hawkins admitted. "But woman who survives husband earns respect, not scorn. Can own property, speak in council, choose own path." "Even an older woman?" Martha asked, the question escaping before she could reconsider. Hawkins' gaze was direct, unembellished. "Especially woman with wisdom years. Young beauty fades like spring flower. Woman who carries years with strength has beauty that endures like mountains." Martha looked away, unaccustomed to such frank admiration. To cover her confusion, she opened her basket and withdrew her medical supplies. "I brought the willow bark tincture we discussed, and I've been experimenting with the herbs you traded." They spent the next hour comparing healing techniques, the conversation flowing naturally between them. Martha demonstrated her method for creating poultices, while Hawkins explained the significance of prayer in Apache medicine. "Body and spirit connected," he explained. "Medicine for one must touch both." Nettie, true to her word, soon retired to her sleeping pallet behind a woven screen, leaving them alone by the fire. In the comfortable silence that followed, Hawkins reached into his medicine pouch and withdrew a small wooden carving. An owl, wings partially extended, eyes watchful. "For you," he said, placing it in her palm. "Owl sees in darkness, finds path when others lost." Martha traced the delicate feathers with her fingertip. "It's beautiful, like its new owner." The simple statement hung in the air between them. Martha looked up, finding his gaze intent upon her face. "Your people would not understand," he said quietly. "My people would question. But I see you, Martha Calloway." "And what do you see?" she whispered. "Woman with courage like warrior. Hands that heal. Eyes that know sorrow but choose kindness." His voice lowered. "Beauty that makes my heart remember feelings I thought died with my wife." Martha's breath caught. Part of her wanted to retreat behind propriety, remind him of all the reasons this connection was impossible. Instead, she found herself saying, "I should go. It's late." Hawkins nodded, respecting her implicit boundary. "I remain nearby 3 more days, then return to my people until trading moon." "Will you come here again? Tomorrow?" The question surprised them both. "If you wish it." "I do," Martha admitted, the simple truth both frightening and liberating. As he helped her with her shawl, his fingers lightly brushed the nape of her neck. The contact, though fleeting, sent awareness cascading through her body, awakening sensations she'd thought long buried with Thomas. "Until tomorrow," he said softly. Walking home beneath the vast star-scattered sky, Martha pressed her hand to the pendant at her throat, wondering what path she had set her feet upon, and why, despite every rational objection, it felt surprisingly like coming home. For 3 precious days, Martha lived a double life. By day, she maintained her store despite its emptiness, enduring Dover Springs' collective cold shoulder. By night, she slipped away to Nettie's cabin where Hocken waited. They talked for hours of healing practices, of their respective cultures, of personal griefs and quiet joys. On the 3rd night, beneath a canopy of stars outside Nettie's cabin, Hocken had taken her hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with hers in silent eloquence. Then he was gone, returned to his people with a promise to come back when the moon was full again. Martha settled into a lonely routine, the memory of those evenings sustaining her through Dover Springs' continuing hostility. Occasionally, a traveling stranger would stop at her store, unaware of her pariah status. These brief transactions were her only regular business. Then the sickness came. It began with the Hargrove children. 3 little ones suddenly struck with violent stomach pains, vomiting, and fever. Dr. Wilson was summoned, pronouncing it a simple case of summer complaint. But by nightfall, similar symptoms had appeared in households throughout Dover Springs. Martha first heard of it when Sophia Preston collapsed outside her store. Rushing to help the semi-conscious young woman, Martha recognized symptoms beyond ordinary illness. The blue tinge to her lips, the particular quality of her breathing. "Fetch the doctor," she instructed a gawking bystander, "and help me get her inside." Despite their estrangement, Mrs. Preston hovered anxiously as Martha laid her daughter on a pallet behind the counter. "What's happening to her?" Mrs. Preston demanded, her previous disdain forgotten in maternal terror. Martha examined Sophia's pupils, checked her pulse. "How long has the town water tasted strange?" "What? I don't know. Perhaps a few days." "What does that matter when my daughter is?" "It matters because this isn't summer complaint," Martha interrupted. "It's poison." By evening, half the town was ill. Dr. Wilson, overwhelmed, reluctantly accepted Martha's assistance. Her knowledge of herbal treatments suddenly outweighed her social disgrace. "It's in the water," Martha insisted as they conferred in the makeshift infirmary set up in the town hall. "The symptoms match arsenic poisoning." "Nonsense," Dr. Wilson scoffed. "That would require deliberate contamination." "Which is exactly what I suspect," Martha replied grimly. "Someone's poisoned the town well." Mayor Thompson, himself looking unwell, overheard this exchange. "Poisoned? Who would do such a thing?" Martha met his gaze steadily. "Who indeed? Perhaps someone who stands to gain if Dover Springs becomes uninhabitable." The implication hung in the air. Silas Reed had been suspiciously absent from town for 3 days. "That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Calloway." "These are serious circumstances, Mayor." With reluctant authority, Thompson ordered the well sealed and sent riders to bring water from the creek. But Martha knew treatment required more than clean water. As darkness fell, she slipped away to the edge of town. Nettie had told her where Hocken's people were camped during his last visit. It was a desperate gamble. He might have returned to Apache territory, and even if nearby, reaching his camp alone at night was dangerous. A mile outside town, Martha hesitated. The darkness seemed to close around her, every rustle in the underbrush suddenly menacing. Just as she was about to turn back, a figure emerged from the shadows. Martha Calloway walks dangerous path alone. Relief flooded her at Hocken's voice. "How did you?" "Nettie sent word. Town is sick." Quickly, Martha explained the situation. Hocken listened intently, his expression grave in the moonlight. "I know this poison sickness. Have medicine that helps, if given soon enough. You'll come? Even after how they've treated you." His expression softened. "I come because you ask. Because suffering needs no tribe." They returned to Dover Springs together, Hocken carrying a deerskin bag of medicines. Their arrival caused a stir despite the late hour and the town's misery. "You bring an Indian into our town? Now?" Dr. Wilson's face flushed with outrage. "I bring a skilled healer with medicines that might save lives," Martha countered. "Including your own." doctor, as I notice you're showing early symptoms yourself. That silenced him temporarily. Hakan, ignoring the hostile stares, knelt beside a suffering child. From his bag, he produced roots and herbs Martha didn't recognize, preparing them with practiced efficiency. This cleanses poison from body, he explained, mixing a pungent paste. This other strengthens heart against poison's attack. Together, they moved from patient to patient. Martha translated Hakan's instructions, their partnership wordlessly efficient despite the extraordinary circumstances. Some refused the savage's medicine, but as those who accepted it began showing improvement, resistance weakened. Near dawn, Martha and Hakan examined the sealed well together. Smell, Hakan directed, wafting air from the well opening toward his nose. Not just arsenic, other poison too. Martha detected the faint bitter almond scent beneath the earthier arsenic smell. Who would have access to such poisons in combination? Someone who wants land empty, Hakan suggested, or someone who wants to blame others for town's suffering. As if summoned by his words, Sheriff Davis appeared, rifle in hand. Step away from the well, Mrs. Calloway. His gaze hardened on Hakan. Should have known you'd be involved in this, Indian. What are you implying, Sheriff? Martha demanded. Ain't implying nothing. Town gets sick right after Apache traders visit? Now I find one tampering with our water. He raised his rifle. Poisoning settlers is a hanging offense. That's absurd. Martha stepped between them. Hakan came to help. He's been treating the sick all night. Convenient cover for the culprit, Sheriff Davis replied. Mayor Thompson wants him held for questioning. And you too, Mrs. Calloway, considering your associations. As the sheriff marched them toward the jailhouse, Martha glimpsed something unexpected. Genuine fear in Hakan's usually impassive eyes. Not fear for himself, she realized, but for her. Truth will speak, he murmured as they walked. Be strong, Martha Calloway. Her hand found his briefly, hidden from the sheriff's view. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Martha spent the night in Dover Springs' single jail cell, separated from Hakan only by iron bars. Neither slept much. By morning, the town had worked itself into a frenzy of suspicion and fear. Dr. Wilson, recovered enough to function thanks to Hakan's medicine, reluctantly confirmed Martha's diagnosis of poisoning to the hastily assembled town council. 2 children had died in the night, and several elders remained gravely ill. Martha could hear the proceedings through the jailhouse window. Mayor Thompson's pontificating, Silas Reed's convenient return with tales of suspicious Indian activity witnessed during his absence, the frightened murmurs of townsfolk seeking someone to blame. They build case against us, Hakan observed quietly. Sheriff takes our words, twists like snake. Martha clutched the bars between their cells. We saved lives last night. Surely that counts for something. Fear makes people blind, sees only what fear wants. He was right. When Sheriff Davis escorted them to face the town council, Martha was struck by the hatred in faces that had once nodded politely to her on the street. Mayor Thompson presided from behind a desk, his face still pallid from his own bout with the poison. Martha Calloway, you stand accused of conspiracy with this Apache to poison Dover Springs water supply. What say you to these charges? They're absurd, Martha replied firmly. I diagnosed the poisoning and sought Hakan's help because he knows medicines that could save lives. Why would I poison a town, then work through the night treating victims? Perhaps to deflect suspicion, Thompson suggested. Or perhaps you were overcome with remorse. Silas Reed leaned forward. Or perhaps she hoped to sicken enough folks that her land would be the only habitable property remaining. Quite valuable then, wouldn't it be? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Martha felt sick at the twisted logic. And you, Thompson addressed Hakan directly. Convenient that you remained near town after your people departed, waiting to strike. Hakan's voice remained calm. I am medicine man. I heal, not harm. Then explain this. Sheriff Davis produced a small leather pouch, found hidden in your belongings. Our doctor confirms it contains the same compounds detected in the well. Shocked whispers erupted. Martha stared at the pouch, similar to ones Hakan used for medicines, but not one she recognized. "That is not mine," Hakan stated flatly. "Of course you'd deny it," the sheriff sneered. Martha's mind raced. "Sheriff, when exactly did you search Hakan's belongings?" "This morning, while you were being questioned separately." "And who was present during this search?" The sheriff hesitated. "Just myself and Mr. Reed, who kindly offered assistance." Martha met Silas Reed's eyes. "How convenient." Before Reed could respond, the jailhouse door burst open. Nettie shuffled in, supporting herself on a gnarled walking stick. Behind her came Joseph Barnes, the newspaper editor, and to Martha's shock, Sophia Preston. "This proceeding not justice," Nettie announced. "Old woman sees truth others blind to." Mayor Thompson sighed impatiently. "Mrs. Nettie, this doesn't concerns all when innocent accused," she interrupted. "Young Sophia has words." Sophia Preston stepped forward, still pale but standing straight. "Mrs. Calloway saved my life yesterday. When others panicked, she knew exactly what was wrong and how to treat it." Her voice strengthened. "And I saw something 2 nights ago that the council should know." Mrs. Preston gasped. "Sophia, you should be resting." "I couldn't sleep, Mother, so I walked to clear my head. Near the well, I saw lantern light. I thought it was the night watchman, but it was Mr. Reed with another man. They were pouring something into the well." The room erupted. Silas Reed lunged to his feet. "The girl's delirious, still affected by the poison." "I know what I saw," Sophia insisted. "And Mr. Barnes has something to show you all." The newspaper editor unfolded a document. "This came into my possession this morning. It's a contract between Silas Reed and the Western Mining Company, signed 3 weeks ago. Reed promised to deliver clear title to all commercial properties in Dover Springs Central District within 2 months. Properties including Mrs. Calloway's store." Martha's suspicions crystallized. "The mining company discovered something under Dover Springs, didn't they? Something valuable enough to poison a town for." "Silver," Barnes confirmed. "A major deposit, according to my sources." Chaos ensued. Sheriff Davis, looking stunned, hesitantly moved to detain Reed, who bolted for the door only to be tackled by several outraged citizens. In the confusion, Martha felt Hakan's hand close gently around hers. For a brief moment, they stood united in vindication before being separated by the surging crowd. Hours later, after Reed had been locked in the very cell she'd occupied and statements had been taken, Martha stood outside the jailhouse. Her name had been cleared, but the damage to her dress, torn when Mrs. Layton had grabbed her in tearful apology, symbolized the deeper tears in her place within Dover Springs. Hakan found her there, watching the sunset paint the town in deceptively peaceful hues. "Your people do not apologize well," he observed. Martha gave a tired laugh. "No, they don't. You are hero now. Saved town twice, from poison and from Reed. For how long? Tomorrow they'll remember I'm still the widow who associates with an Apache warrior." Hakan studied her face in the fading light. "What you want, Martha Calloway, to be accepted by people who value you only when convenient." The question struck her like a physical blow. What did she want? The town's approval had been her measure for so long. "I want." She hesitated, then met his gaze directly. "I want to be seen, truly seen." His hand rose, hesitantly touching her cheek with a gentleness that belied his strength. "I see you." The simple declaration held more truth than all of Dover Springs' hollow apologies. When his fingers brushed a silver strand of her hair, tucking it tenderly behind her ear, Martha felt something within her shift irrevocably. "Beauty here," he murmured. "And here." His fingers traced the lines at the corner of her eye. Marks of a life lived with courage. As the last light faded from the sky, Martha made her choice. Standing on tiptoe, she pressed her lips gently to his. A kiss as soft as a promise, as revolutionary as dawned in the week following the poisoning crisis. Dover Springs underwent a transformation. Silas Reed awaited trial in the county seat, The mining company representatives were run out of town, and Martha found herself in the novel position of being greeted respectfully on the street. Her store even saw a modest return of business, not the rush of contrition she might have expected, but a tentative restoration of commercial relationships. Yet beneath this veneer of normalcy, Martha felt profoundly changed. The kiss she'd shared with Håkon had awakened something she'd thought long buried, a capacity for tenderness, for desire, for possibility. Håkon had not left as originally planned. The Apache delegation returned to confirm the trading arrangements, but he remained behind as their representative, camping openly at the designated site near the smithy. His presence was tolerated now, if not welcomed, the town's gratitude extending just far enough to acknowledge his role in treating the poisoning victims. Their meetings continued at Nettie's cabin, no longer requiring complete secrecy but still conducted with discretion. Tonight, Håkon waited for her outside, a dark silhouette against the star-filled sky. "I brought you something," Martha said after their greeting, producing a book from her basket. "It's a medical text from back east. The illustrations of anatomy might interest you." They sat side by side on a fallen log as Håkon carefully turned the pages, his finger tracing the detailed drawings. "Your medicine sees body as machine," he observed. "Parts to be fixed when broken. And yours? We see body as river, spirit flows through like water. Medicine must clear the path when flow is blocked." He glanced at her. Not so different, perhaps. Their shoulders touched as they bent over the book together. Such simple contact, yet Martha felt it acutely, the warmth of him, the solidity. Since Thomas died, she'd experienced a famine of touch that she hadn't fully recognized until now. "The town talks less about us," she noted, changing the subject. "They forget quickly. Convenience of not seeing what disturbs." "Does it disturb you?" Martha asked quietly. "What's happening between us?" Håkon closed the book, considering her question with characteristic thoughtfulness. "My people have word for when two rivers join, becoming stronger together than separate. Is not disturbing, is natural." He looked at her directly. "But has consequences." "Yes," Martha agreed softly. "It does." From inside the cabin, Nettie called for them to come eat. The old woman had taken to preparing meals when they visited, creating a semblance of normalcy around their unconventional relationship. Over rabbit stew and cornbread, Håkon spoke of his people's traditions regarding the stars. After the meal, he suggested they view the night sky properly. Nettie, with a knowing smile, waved them away. They walked to a small rise behind the cabin. Håkon spread his blanket on the ground, and they sat together, faces tilted upward. "There," he pointed to a cluster of stars. "We call that Deer Runner. Your people name it differently." "Orion, I believe," Martha replied. "The hunter. Not so different." His arm extended again. "And there, 7 sisters who watch over young women." "The Pleiades," Martha identified. "Though I like your name better." Håkon reached into his medicine pouch and withdrew a folded piece of leather. Opening it revealed a detailed drawing of the night sky, with symbols and connecting lines forming patterns different from the constellation maps Martha had seen in books. "Star map," he explained, "shows how stars move through seasons. When to plant, when to hunt, when to seek visions." Martha studied the intricate drawing. "It's beautiful. Did you make this?" "My father taught me. His father before. Knowledge passed down." "Like the medical knowledge we both carry," Martha observed. "Different traditions, same purpose." "Yes." Håkon's hand found hers in the darkness. "Same purpose, different paths." They sat in companionable silence, hands intertwined. Martha felt a peace she hadn't known since Thomas's death, perhaps even before. With Håkon, she needn't pretend to be less than she was. No hiding her intelligence, no diminishing her strength to accommodate male pride. "I was married at 16, she said suddenly. "It was considered late in my family." "Young by any measure," Håkon replied. "Thomas was 22, already established as a carpenter. We grew up together in many ways." She looked at their joined hands. "When he died, The town expected me to remarry quickly or move in with my sister in St. Louis. A woman alone wasn't supposed to continue a business, make her own decisions. Your spirit too strong for cage others build. And you? Martha asked. Tell me about your wife. Hakan was quiet for a moment. Morning dove. We married 20 summers. No children came. His voice softened with memory. She was warrior in her way, fought sickness that took many, helped birth babies, kept old stories. When fever finally won, part of me joined ancestors with her. Yet part remained, Martha said gently. Part remained. His fingers tightened around hers, though did not expect to find reason to feel glad of it. The admission hung between them, heartfelt and unadorned. Martha turned to face him, moonlight silvering his strong features. Nettie says we're both too stubborn for our own good, she said with a small smile. Grandmother, Nettie sees clearly. His free hand rose to touch her silver-streaked hair. Stubbornness keeps us standing when others would have us bow. Martha leaned into his touch. What are we doing, Hakan? A widow from Pennsylvania and an Apache medicine man. Living, he said simply. Despite what others say is proper. Despite boundaries others draw. His hand cradled her cheek. Fear asks what we do. Courage asks why not. When they kissed this time, it held none of the hesitation of their first embrace. It was a decision, mutual and clear-eyed, to step onto a path neither had anticipated but both now chose. Later, walking back to town beneath the vast wheeling stars, Martha carried the warmth of that choice within her. A private certainty against whatever storms might come. For 3 precious weeks, Martha lived in the space between worlds. By day, she was Martha Calloway, shopkeeper and reluctant town heroine. By night, she met Hakan beneath star-scattered skies, each encounter deepening the connection neither had sought, but both now cherished. They were careful, meeting at Nettie's cabin or in the shadow of ancient cottonwoods by the creek, speaking in public only when necessary and then with formal restraint. But in private moments, they shared stories, beliefs, laughter, and increasingly tender embraces. Martha bloomed under Hakan's attentive gaze. The silver in her hair, the lines at her eyes that Dover Springs saw as marks of diminishment, he touched with reverence. For the first time since youth, she felt beautiful, not despite her age but because of the wisdom and strength it represented. You stand differently now, Nettie observed one morning as Martha arranged stock. Like woman who remembers her worth. Martha smiled. Perhaps I do. The bell jangled as Mayor Thompson entered, his manner noticeably more deferential since the poisoning incident. Mrs. Calloway, good day. He removed his hat. Town council wished me to personally deliver news. In light of recent events, the eminent domain order against your property has been rescinded. Relief washed through her. I'm pleased to hear it. Furthermore, Thompson continued, the council voted to appoint you to the town health committee. Your knowledge proved valuable during our crisis. Martha accepted this olive branch with grace, though she noted it came with no actual apology for past treatment. Also, Thompson cleared his throat uncomfortably. The Apache delegation's trading permit has been extended another month. Their horses have proven exceptional quality. Martha kept her expression neutral despite the leap of her heart. I'm sure that's a wise business decision for the town. After Thompson departed, Martha allowed herself a moment of pure joy, a reprieve for her store and another month with Hakan, more than she dared hope for. That evening, she closed early and prepared to meet him, pinning her hair more carefully than usual, adding a touch of rose water at her throat. The small vanities made her smile at herself, a woman her age, preparing for a tryst like a girl of 20. The path to Nettie's cabin was familiar now, her feet finding the way even as darkness fell. Lost in pleasant anticipation, she didn't notice the small figure following at a distance. Hakan waited by the creek, a dark silhouette until she drew close enough to see his smile. He held something in his hands, a small deerskin pouch decorated with intricate beadwork. For medicine woman, he said, presenting it to her. Made by my hands. Martha traced the beaded pattern, a healing symbol she recognized from their conversations. It's beautiful, like its owner. He touched her face with gentle fingers. Your eyes hold starlight tonight. Martha leaned into his touch. The town has canceled the order against my store and extended the trading agreement. Good news. His smile deepened. More time, she agreed, stepping into his embrace. Their kiss was unhurried, tender with growing familiarity yet still charged with discovery. Martha felt young and ancient simultaneously. Young in rediscovered passion, ancient in the soul-deep recognition of finding her equal. A sharp gasp broke the moment. They turned to find young Timothy Jenkins, the minister's 10-year-old son, staring wide-eyed from behind a tree. Before either could speak, the boy turned and ran toward town. He will tell, Hawkins said grimly. Yes. Martha's hand flew to her throat. We need to. Separate, Hawkins finished. I return to camp, you to town. Deny if needed. I won't deny you, Martha said fiercely. May need to. For safety. They parted quickly, Martha hurrying toward Dover Springs with dread building in her chest. By the time she reached Main Street, lights blazed in windows despite the late hour. She could hear raised voices from the direction of the church. Steeling herself, Martha walked directly to her store, head high despite the stares of townsfolk gathered in small clusters. She had barely lit her lamp when pounding rattled her door. Reverend Jenkins stood on her threshold, righteous anger evident in every line of his body. Behind him gathered a dozen citizens, including Mayor Thompson and Sheriff Davis. Is it true? Jenkins demanded without preamble. My son claims he witnessed you in a compromising embrace with the Apache. Martha met his gaze steadily. I was saying goodnight to a friend. With your lips, Mrs. Hargrove pushed forward. Timothy was quite specific, Martha Calloway. Have you lost your senses completely? Thompson blustered. Consorting romantically with an Indian? At your age. The dual condemnation, of both Hawkins' race and her years, sparked Martha's temper. My age and my associations are not the town's concern. They are when you bring shame upon decent folk, Reverend Jenkins countered. When you corrupt youth with displays of unnatural affection. Unnatural, Martha's voice rose. To find connection with a person of intelligence, kindness, and honor? What's unnatural is a town that values youth over wisdom, appearance over character. She's hysterical, someone murmured. The change of life affects women's minds. Martha felt fury rise within her. If questioning your prejudices makes me hysterical, then so be it. Sheriff Davis stepped forward. Where is he now? I don't know, Martha answered truthfully. Sheriff, Thompson interjected. Perhaps it's time the Apache delegation concluded their business in Dover Springs. Agreed. Davis nodded grimly. First light tomorrow, I'll escort them to the territorial boundary. Forcibly if necessary. On what grounds? Martha demanded. Moral corruption, Reverend Jenkins said coldly. Disruption of community standards. Inappropriate influence on a white woman. The crowd murmured agreement, faces set with righteous certainty that chilled Martha to her core. And as for you, Mrs. Calloway, Thompson added, the town council will reconsider your position on the health committee and your business license. After they departed, Martha sank into her chair, a crumpled note in her hand that had been discreetly pressed there by young Sophia Preston during the confrontation. They're sending men to the Apache camp tonight. Not waiting until morning. Be careful. As Martha grabbed her shawl. However dangerous, she had to warn Hawkins. As she slipped out her back door into the darkness, she clutched the beaded medicine pouch he'd given her. A talisman against the hatred now fully awakened in Dover Springs. Martha moved swiftly through the darkness, avoiding Dover Springs' main streets. Her heart pounded with each step, fear for Hawkins outweighing concern for her own safety. The night seemed to conspire with her, clouds obscuring the moon and muffling her footsteps. She was halfway to the Apache camp when a hand closed around her arm, pulling her behind a stand of juniper. She nearly cried out before recognizing Nettie's weathered face. "Not that way," the old woman hissed. "Sheriff men already there. Hakan. Safe. I warn him first. Come." Nettie tugged her toward a narrow deer trail leading away from town. They walked in silence, Martha following Nettie's sure steps despite the old woman's age and the difficult terrain. After 20 minutes, they reached a small clearing where Hakan waited, his horse saddled nearby. Martha rushed to him, relief making her knees weak. "They're coming for you. The town, they know about us." "Minister Boy saw," Nettie explained. "Told father. Now whole town burn with righteous anger." Hakan's face was grim in the filtered moonlight. "My men. Taken. Sheriff say trading permit revoked. Hold them till morning, then escort to territory border. I must help them." "No." Martha gripped his arm. "Davis has deputies with rifles. They're looking for any excuse." She couldn't finish the sentence. Hakan understood. "Looking for reason to shoot Apache who corrupts white woman." "We need to leave," Martha urged. "Both of us. Tonight." "Leave." Hakan studied her face. "Your store. Your life here." "What life? They'll never accept what we've found together. The town council is already threatening my business license." Nettie interrupted, thrusting a folded paper at Martha. "Found in Reed's desk. Sheriff looking for evidence after arrest. Give to me for safekeeping. Think you should see." Martha unfolded the document. In the dim light, she could just make out a map of Dover Springs with property boundaries clearly marked. Her store was circled in red, with notations she couldn't decipher in the margins. "What is this?" "Turn over," Nettie instructed. On the reverse was a letter on Western Mining Company letterhead, dated months before Silas Reed's arrest. "Mr. Reed, our geological survey confirms significant gold deposits beneath the northeast quadrant of Dover Springs, particularly concentrated under lots 7 to 12. The Calloway property, lot 8, sits directly above the richest vein. As discussed, acquisition of these properties must be completed before filing official claims to avoid price inflation. Remember our agreement. 30% of profits to you upon successful extraction. The widow should be easily pressured to sell given her tenuous social position and age-related vulnerabilities. If standard persuasion fails, proceed with alternative measures as discussed. Discretion is paramount. Regards, J. Whitfield, Director of Acquisitions. Martha's hands trembled as realization dawned. It wasn't just commercial development. There's gold under my store. Gold fever make men crazy, Nettie nodded. Make them see old woman, not strong woman. Think you easy to push away. That's why they've been so determined all these years. Martha's mind raced. The harassment, the social isolation, the exorbitant taxes. It was never about propriety or my age. It was about getting me off that land. And when fail, try poison, Nettie added grimly. Make whole town uninhabitable if necessary. Hakan took the letter, studying it carefully. This proves town leaders conspire with Reed. Sheriff too, perhaps. It proves nothing without an honest judge, Martha countered. And the territorial judge is Thompson's brother-in-law. A twig snapped in the darkness. All three froze. There, a voice called. I see movement. Run, Nettie urged, pushing them toward the horse. I lead away. Meet at 3 Rocks Crossing. Before Martha could protest, the old woman slipped into the underbrush, deliberately making noise to draw attention. Hakan pulled Martha onto his horse and they rode hard in the opposite direction, hooves muffled by the soft forest floor. They emerged from the trees near the creek crossing where 3 distinctive boulders marked the ford. Dismounting in the shadow of the rocks, they waited in tense silence. Nettie knows these hills better than any white man, Martha whispered. She'll be safe. Hakan nodded, though concern lined his face. What now, Martha Calloway? Cannot return to town. Cannot reach my people without crossing open country where sheriff watches. Martha clutched the damning letter. This is evidence of conspiracy reaching beyond Reed. If we could get it to the territorial governor. 2 weeks' ride to territorial capital. Then that's where we go, Martha decided, surprising herself with her certainty. This evidence might not just save your men but expose the entire scheme. Hawkins studied her face in the moonlight. You would leave everything? Your store? Your life here? What life? Martha repeated softly. A business under constant threat? Neighbors who tolerate me only when convenient? Alternatively, she reached for his hand. Adventure, purpose, freedom to be who I am, with whom I choose. A smile slowly transformed Hawkins' solemn features. You have warrior spirit truly. Or I'm simply too old to fear losing what wasn't truly mine anyway. The crack of rifles in the distance ended their conversation. Hawkins helped Martha remount, then swung up behind her. We ride south, he decided. Through hills. Harder trail, but sheriff men not follow there. As they urged the horse forward, Martha felt a strange lightness despite the danger. For the first time in years, she was choosing her path rather than defending her position. The gold beneath her store had been her trap, not her treasure, keeping her fighting for a place that had never truly welcomed her. Now, with Hawkins' solid presence behind her and unknown terrain ahead, Martha Calloway rode into darkness that somehow felt more like dawn. They rode through the night, following game trails and creek beds to obscure their tracks. Martha's body ached from the unaccustomed hours in the saddle, but she uttered no complaint. Behind her, Hawkins guided their mount with the confidence of one born to the wilderness. Dawn found them deep in rugged country. Hawkins finally reined in beside a spring sheltered by overhanging rock. Rest here, he said, helping Martha dismount. Her legs nearly buckled as they touched ground. Few hours only. Then continue. Martha sank gratefully onto a sun-warmed stone while Hawkins tended the horse. In the clear morning light, she examined him properly for the first time since their flight began. His face was drawn with fatigue, and she noticed him favoring his left side. You're hurt, she said, rising despite her exhaustion. Small thing. Rifle shot passed close when leaving camp. Let me see. Reluctantly, Hawkins opened his buckskin shirt. An angry furrow ran along his ribs where a bullet had grazed him. The wound wasn't deep but looked inflamed. Martha frowned. This needs cleaning. Do you have medicine in your pouch? Hawkins nodded, handing her his medicine bundle. Martha recognized many of the herbs they'd discussed during their evenings together. Working efficiently, she cleaned the wound with water from the spring, then applied a poultice of yarrow and sage. You have healer's touch, Hawkins murmured as her fingers worked gently over his skin. Good thing one of us does, Martha replied, trying to mask her concern. Though not life-threatening, the wound troubled her. They had a long journey ahead, and infection could develop quickly. After a few hours' rest, they continued south, keeping to the high country where pursuit would be difficult. By sunset, Martha noticed Hawkins' breathing had grown labored, his skin hot where her arms encircled his waist. We need to stop, she insisted. You're wound. Not safe yet, he replied, voice tight with pain. Sheriff men good trackers. You'll be no good to either of us with fever taking hold. Eventually, necessity forced their decision. As Hawkins' condition deteriorated, Martha spotted smoke rising from a distant valley. A small homestead nestled against the foothills. There, she pointed. We'll seek help. Dangerous, Hawkins cautioned. Not know if friend or enemy. We have no choice, Martha replied firmly. I need shelter to treat you properly. The homestead proved to be a small cabin with a vegetable garden and goat pen. As they approached, an elderly man emerged, rifle ready but not aimed. State your business, he called. Martha raised her hands. We need help. My friend is injured. The man, wizened with a snow-white beard, squinted at them. Apache, ain't he? Yes, Martha answered honestly. He's been shot. We're trying to reach the territorial capital with evidence of corruption in Dover Springs. The old man lowered his rifle slightly. Dover Springs, you say? That pompous fool Thompson's still mayor there. Yes, Martha confirmed, hope kindling. A cackle escaped the old man. Good enough for me. Thompson ran me out 10 years back when I wouldn't sell my claim. Name's Ezekiel Carter. Bring your man inside. The cabin's interior was surprisingly neat, with dried herbs hanging from the rafters. A hopeful sign. By now, Hakan could barely stand. Together, Martha and Ezekiel helped him to a narrow bed. "Fever's taking hold," Martha said, placing her palm on Hakan's forehead. "I need hot water, clean cloths, and any medicines you might have." "Got plenty," Ezekiel replied, gesturing to the herbs overhead. "Missus was a healer before she passed. Taught me some, though I ain't got her touch." For the next hours, Martha worked tirelessly. She cleaned Hakan's wound thoroughly, discovering bits of cloth carried in by the bullet that were causing the infection. With Ezekiel's help, she prepared a stronger poultice and a tea of willow bark and echinacea for the fever. Through the night, she bathed Hakan's face with cool cloths, murmuring encouragement when he thrashed in feverish dreams. Sometimes he spoke in Apache, words she couldn't understand but delivered with such anguish that her heart constricted. "He calls for his wife sometimes," Ezekiel observed from his chair by the fire. "And for you other times." Martha looked up, surprised. "You understand Apache?" "Enough. Traded with M for years before settling here." He studied her face in the firelight. "You love him, don't you? Despite what folks would say." Martha's hands stilled on the cloth. "I do," she admitted, the first time she'd spoken the words aloud. "God help me. God's got nothing against love, far as I can tell," Ezekiel replied. "It's people who make the rules about who can love who." Toward dawn, Hakan's fever broke. Martha, exhausted beyond measure, had fallen asleep beside him, her head resting on the edge of his bed, one hand still clasping his. She woke to the gentle touch of his fingers in her hair. "You save me again," he murmured, voice weak but clear. Martha straightened, blinking away sleep. "How do you feel?" "Like horse stepped on chest." He attempted a smile. "But alive. You had me worried." She touched his forehead, confirming the fever had truly broken. "Apache warrior not die from scratch." "That scratch nearly killed you," Martha scolded, relief making her voice sharper than intended. Hakan's hand found hers. "Would be poor trade, my life for chance to reach governor." "No trade would be acceptable," Martha replied softly. His dark eyes studied her face. "You not sleep." "I slept enough." "Lie," he said with gentle certainty. "Lines of worry here." His thumb traced beside her eye. "Beautiful still, but tired." Ezekiel cleared his throat from the doorway. "Stew's ready if you two are finished making eyes at each other." Over a hearty breakfast, they explained their situation fully. Ezekiel listened, nodding occasionally. "Always knew something fishy was happening in Dover Springs," he said when they finished. "Town sits on old Spanish mining territory. Rumors of gold been around for generations. Will you help us reach the territorial capital?" Martha asked. Ezekiel considered. "Can't leave my place this time of year, but I can point you to a safer trail, provide supplies." He glanced between them, his weathered face softening. "And offer shelter until your man's strong enough to travel." "My man?" Martha repeated softly, testing the words. Hakan's eyes met hers across the table, a question in their depths. She reached for his hand, no longer concerned with who might see or judge. "Yes," she said simply. "My man." 5 days at Ezekiel's homestead restored Hakan's strength. Though still favoring his injured side, he moved with increasing ease, helping their host chop wood and mend fences in return for shelter. Martha assisted with cooking and tending the garden, finding unexpected peace in this temporary haven. On the 6th morning, Ezekiel spread a worn map across his table. "Sheriff's men have been patrolling the main trails," he reported, having ridden to a nearby trading post for news. "Word is they're hunting an Apache who kidnapped a widow from Dover Springs." Martha's indignation flared. "Kidnapped?" "Thompson's version," Ezekiel shrugged. "Easier than admitting a respectable woman chose an Apache over white society." Hakan studied the map. "Need to reach governor without being seen. That's why I'm sending you through here." Ezekiel traced a thin line through the mountains. Old Spanish mining trail. Rough going, but no patrols. We'll need more evidence than just the letter, Martha mused. Something that proves Thompson and the others were involved with Reed. Ezekiel stroked his beard thoughtfully. Might be able to help there. Got a friend in Dover Springs. Joseph Barnes at the newspaper. Been printing your story, far as he can without getting shut down. Martha brightened. Joseph was already suspicious of the mining company. He helped clear us during the poisoning incident. I'll get word to him, Ezekiel promised. Have him meet you here before you set out for the capital. 3 days later, hoofbeats announced a rider approaching the cabin. Hakan melted into the surrounding woods as a precaution while Martha and Ezekiel waited anxiously. Relief washed over her when Joseph Barnes dismounted, followed by an unexpected second rider, Sophia Preston. Mrs. Calloway. Sophia rushed forward, embracing Martha. We've been so worried. Inside, with Hakan cautiously rejoining them, explanations flowed. Dover Springs had divided sharply after Martha's disappearance. Many believed Thompson's kidnapping story, but others, particularly those who remembered the mining company's involvement in the poisoning, harbored doubts. I've been collecting information, Joseph explained, producing a leather portfolio. Affidavits from people who overheard Reed discussing the gold with Thompson. Bank records showing transfers from mining company, accounts to the mayor's personal funds. And I brought these, Sophia added, unfolding several documents. Letters my father kept. He's on the town council and suspected something wasn't right. Mayor Thompson has been corresponding with the mining company for years. Martha examined the evidence with growing hope. This might be enough to convince the governor. There's more, Joseph continued. The Apache delegation Hakan was part of. They filed a formal complaint through the Indian agency. Their men were detained illegally, their property confiscated. The Indian agent is already investigating. Hakan's expression remained stoic, but Martha noticed his shoulders relax slightly. My people safe? Released after 3 days, Joseph confirmed. But your horses were requisitioned for sheriff's use. Stolen, Hakan corrected flatly. The territorial newspaper picked up the story, Joseph added. Public sentiment isn't with Thompson on this. Interfering with sanctioned trading arrangements has implications beyond Dover Springs. What about Nettie? Martha asked anxiously. Safe, Sophia assured her. Staying with my family. After what she did to help you escape, Mother insisted. Martha raised an eyebrow. Your mother? The same Mrs. Preston who couldn't bear to shop in my exotic store. Sophia smiled wryly. People change, Mrs. Calloway. Seeing the town turn on you, a respected businesswoman, made many reconsider their assumptions. She hesitated, and watching someone brave enough to choose love over society's approval, it affected me deeply. Martha felt Hakan's hand find hers beneath the table. They had never labeled what existed between them, but love named it perfectly. We've organized support, Joseph explained. A petition with over 40 signatures demanding investigation into the mining claims and Thompson's administration. 40. Martha was astonished. From Dover Springs? And surrounding homesteads? Joseph nodded. Once people understood what was really happening, that Thompson and his cronies were willing to poison a town for gold, public opinion shifted dramatically. Ezekiel slapped the table. Always said that Blowhard Thompson would overreach someday. As night fell, they finalized plans. Joseph and Sophia would return to Dover Springs, continuing to gather evidence and support. Martha and Hakan would depart at dawn for the territorial capital, carrying the documents and petition. Later, as Martha prepared her pack, Sophia approached her privately. I admire you, Mrs. Calloway, the young woman said softly. Standing against the entire town, choosing your own path. Martha smiled. At my advanced age, you mean? Sophia blushed. I never should have repeated those cruel things. I understand now how wrong they were. It's a difficult journey, questioning what you've been taught to believe. Martha touched the young woman's hand. But necessary. Is it worth it? Sophia asked, glancing toward where Hakan spoke with Joseph by the fire. Facing such opposition for love? Martha followed her gaze, warmth filling her chest at the sight of Haakon's profile, strong and dignified in the firelight. Some treasures are worth any price, Sophia. I've lived enough years to recognize them when they appear. As Sophia departed, Martha joined Haakon outside. The night was clear, stars scattered like diamonds across the velvet sky. We have allies now, she observed. More than I expected. Truth finds voice eventually, Haakon replied, like water finding path through stone. Are you strong enough for the journey tomorrow? Martha's hand found his, fingers intertwining with practiced ease. With you beside me? Yes. He lifted their joined hands, pressing his lips to her knuckles. Martha Calloway makes me strong. Under the vast western sky, Martha felt the last vestiges of Dover Springs' influence fall away. Whatever challenges awaited, she faced them not as a widow past her prime, but as a woman who had found her truest self in the most unexpected of places, and would fight to defend it. The Spanish mining trail proved as challenging as Ezekiel had warned. For 4 days, Martha and Haakon navigated narrow paths that clung to mountainsides, crossed icy streams, and wound through forests so dense sunlight barely penetrated. Martha's muscles protested each morning, but she found a rhythm to the journey, a meditative quality to the constant movement. They spoke little during the day, saving breath for the demanding terrain. At night, beside small, carefully shielded fires, they reviewed their strategy and the evidence they carried. The territorial governor was reputed to be a fair-minded man, but Martha harbored no illusions about how their case might be received. A middle-aged shopkeeper and an Apache warrior accusing prominent white citizens of corruption. On the 5th evening, they made camp in a sheltered hollow. The territorial capital was just 2 days' ride away. As Haakon prepared a small fire, Martha sorted through the documents they carried, ensuring everything remained in order despite the rigors of travel. These bank records are particularly damning, she noted, carefully refolding a statement showing transfers from Western Mining Company to Thompson's personal account. Combined with the correspondence Sophia provided, they establish a clear pattern of corruption. Haakon nodded, adding juniper branches to their fire. Evidence strong. But justice not always follow evidence when Apache involved. Or women, Martha added wryly, particularly women of a certain age. Haakon looked up, firelight casting his strong features in amber relief. You fear not being believed? I fear being dismissed, Martha clarified. There's a difference. The governor might believe everything we say is true, yet still decide Thompson and his cronies are more valuable to territorial interests than justice. Then why continue? Haakon asked, not challenging but genuinely curious. Martha considered the question. Because living with truth spoken aloud, even if rejected, is better than silence. She met his gaze across the fire. You taught me that. Later, as they lay side by side beneath Ezekiel's borrowed blankets, Haakon spoke into the darkness. My people have council tomorrow. Decide next season's hunting grounds. Resolve disputes between families. You should be there, Martha said softly. Would be, in another life. His hand found hers between them. But this path more important now. What will you do after? If the governor acts against Thompson. Haakon was silent so long Martha thought he might not answer. Return to my people, he finally said. But not same man who left. Changed now. Martha turned to face him, though she could barely discern his profile in the darkness. Changed how? Heart divided now. Belongs partly to my tribe, partly. He hesitated. Partly to woman with silver in her hair and courage in her spirit. Martha's breath caught. They had expressed growing affection through touches, glances, and actions, but rarely with such direct words. And what will you do, Martha Calloway? Haakon asked. If justice comes to Dover Springs? The question had haunted her throughout their journey. I don't know, she admitted. My store was my life for so long. But now I understand it was also my cage. A place to hide from the world after Thomas died. Her fingers tightened around his. I'm not that woman anymore. Morning brought low clouds and a penetrating chill. As they broke camp, Martha sensed a new tension in Haakon's movements. Something's wrong, she observed as he repeatedly scanned the ridgeline above them. Feeling only. Like before battle. He adjusted the medicine pouch at his waist. Be watchful today. They traveled cautiously, Hakan frequently doubling back to check their trail. By midday, Martha shared his unease. Twice they heard distant sounds that might have been gunshots or might have been branches breaking under the weight of snow. We're being followed, Hakan finally confirmed, examining faint impressions in a patch of mud. 2 riders, keeping distance. Martha's heart quickened. Sheriff Davis? Perhaps. Or bounty hunters. Hakan straightened. 2 days to governor, not possible now. Need different plan. They diverted from the trail, taking an even more difficult route through rocky terrain where horses struggled and tracks would be minimal. By late afternoon, they reached a promontory overlooking a small settlement in the valley below. Silver Creek, Hakan identified. Trading post. Telegraph office. Martha studied the cluster of buildings. If we could send a telegram to the governor. Dangerous. Thompson's men could be waiting. Or we could find help, Martha countered. We can't outrun pursuers forever. As dusk approached, they formulated a plan. Martha would enter Silver Creek alone. A widow traveling to visit relatives would attract less attention than an Apache warrior. She would send a telegram to the governor requesting urgent meeting and protection, then secure rooms at the trading post's small hotel. If I'm not back in 2 hours, she instructed, assume something's wrong and continue to the capital without me. Hakan's face hardened. Not leave you. The evidence reaching the governor is what matters, Martha insisted. Promise me, Hakan. Reluctantly, he nodded. As Martha prepared to descend into the valley, Hakan reached into his medicine pouch and withdrew something small and glinting. Protection, he said, pressing a smooth stone into her palm. River stone from sacred place. Carries spirit strength. Martha tucked it into her bodice, next to her heart. I'll return before the moon rises. Martha Calloway, Hakan's voice stopped her. When she turned, he took her face between his hands with unexpected gentleness. I have no right to claim you. Different worlds, different paths. But if Creator allows, when this journey ends. He paused, searching for words. I know, Martha whispered, covering his hands with her own. I feel the same. His kiss was tender yet fierce, conveying everything words could not. When they parted, Martha saw in his eyes the same certainty that had taken root in her own heart during their journey. Whatever waited in Silver Creek, whatever challenges lay ahead, they faced them not as widow and warrior, white and Apache, but as 2 people who had found in each other a home neither had expected to discover again. Martha squared her shoulders and began the descent into the valley, the river stone warm against her skin and Hakan's watchful presence a shield at her back. Silver Creek proved larger than it appeared from the ridge, a single main street lined with false-fronted buildings, bustling with surprising activity for its remote location. Martha adjusted her shawl, assuming the demeanor of a respectable widow as she approached the telegraph office. The operator, a bespectacled young man, barely glanced at her as she composed her message to the territorial governor. Urgent stop evidence of corruption and attempted murder in Dover Springs. Stop Mayor Thompson and Sheriff Davis conspiring with mining interests. Stop witnesses in danger. Stop request immediate protection at Silver Creek. Stop Martha Calloway and Hakan of Apache Nation. When will this reach the capital? Martha asked, counting out coins from her dwindling funds. Wires direct. Governor's office will have it within the hour. The operator frowned. Dover Springs, you say? Wasn't there some trouble there recently? Something about poisoned water. Martha tensed. You've heard news of it? Sure. Telegraph brings all sorts of stories. He tilted his head. Thought I heard something about an Indian kidnapping a widow from there too. Martha's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. How interesting. I hadn't heard that particular tale. Outside, she scanned the street warily. No sign of Sheriff Davis or known faces from Dover Springs, but the sensation of being watched prickled between her shoulder blades. She located the trading post's small hotel and secured a room, then purchased supplies for their continued journey. As dusk gathered, Martha grew increasingly uneasy. She needed to return to Hakan but feared leading pursuers directly to him. Deciding to wait until full darkness, She entered the trading post's attached saloon for a meal. The establishment fell momentarily silent as she entered. A lone woman in a male domain, before conversation resumed. Martha took a table in the corner, back to the wall as Håkon had taught her during their journey. She was halfway through a bowl of stew when the saloon door opened. Mayor Thompson and Sheriff Davis stood in the threshold, trail-worn but unmistakable. Martha froze, her spoon suspended midair. They hadn't seen her yet, focused on scanning the bar area. Moving carefully, Martha pulled her shawl forward to shadow her face. She needed to warn Håkon. The back door was only 15 feet away. If she could slip out unnoticed. Well, look who we found. Too late. Sheriff Davis loomed over her table, satisfaction twisting his features. Mayor Thompson joined him, smug triumph evident in his stance. Mrs. Calloway, how fortunate. We've been so concerned for your welfare. Martha straightened, abandoning pretense. I'm sure you have. Where's the Indian? Davis demanded, hand resting on his holstered pistol. I have no idea who you're referring to, Martha replied evenly. Thompson leaned forward, lowering his voice. Now, Martha, be reasonable. You're in a delicate position. A respectable widow alone with a savage? Dover Springs might forgive a momentary lapse in judgment if you cooperate now. Momentary lapse? Martha's voice rose slightly. Is that what you call uncovering your conspiracy with Silas Reed and the Western Mining Company? Several nearby patrons turned to listen. Thompson's face darkened. Careful, Mrs. Calloway. Slander has consequences. It's not slander if it's true, Martha countered. We have the documents, Mayor. Bank transfers, correspondence, geological surveys showing gold beneath my property. Everything. Davis grabbed her arm roughly. You're coming back to Dover Springs to face charges. Remove your hand, Sheriff, Martha said quietly, or I'll ensure everyone in this establishment hears exactly how you detained Apache traders illegally while conspiring to poison your own townspeople. The saloon had grown silent, all attention focused on their confrontation. Davis's grip tightened painfully. You heard the woman. The new voice came from the doorway. Håkon stood there, silhouetted against the darkening sky, his presence commanding despite his solitary status against two armed men. The savage himself? Thompson sneered, but Martha noticed him take a step back. The saloon patrons shifted, creating space for whatever was about to unfold. The bartender reached beneath the counter, likely for a shotgun. This doesn't concern Silver Creek, Davis announced to the room. This Indian kidnapped a widow from Dover Springs. We're returning her safely home. Kidnapped? Martha wrenched her arm free. I left voluntarily to escape your corruption and threats. Lies from a woman clearly not in her right mind, Thompson interjected smoothly. At her age, confusion is common. The Apache has obviously taken advantage. Her age? Interrupted a gruff voice. A large man at the bar turned to face them. The lady looks sound of mind to me. And body? Added another patron with an appreciative glance that, in other circumstances, might have offended Martha. Davis moved his hand to his pistol. This isn't your business, gentlemen. Maybe not. The bartender finally spoke, shotgun now visible in his hands. But we don't cotton to manhandling women in my establishment, regardless of age or circumstances. Håkon moved to Martha's side, his steps measured and deliberate. We have proof of crimes, he stated, voice carrying through the silent room. Seek justice, not trouble. Thompson's face contorted with rage and something else. Fear. You'd take an Indian's word over a mayor and sheriff? He's bewitched this woman. Turned her against her own kind. My own kind. Martha's voice rang clear with righteous anger. My kind doesn't poison wells or threaten widows for gold beneath their property. My kind values truth and justice above greed. A commotion at the door drew all eyes. A man in an official-looking uniform entered, flanked by two deputies. Marshal Parker, Territorial Authority, he announced. I'm looking for Martha Calloway and a man called Håkon. Thompson straightened triumphantly. Marshal, Thank goodness. We were just apprehending these. Mayor Thompson? The marshal cut him off. And Sheriff Davis? Excellent. You're both under arrest on suspicion of conspiracy, corruption, and attempted murder. The room erupted. In the chaos, Davis drew his pistol, aiming not at the marshal but at Hocken. Martha saw the movement and threw herself forward without thinking. The gunshot echoed like thunder in the confined space. Pain blossomed in Martha's shoulder as she fell. Hocken caught her, lowering her gently to the floor as shouts and more gunfire erupted around them. Through a haze of shock, she saw Davis fall, the marshal's deputies subduing Thompson. Martha Calloway. Hocken's voice seemed to come from a great distance. Stay with me. The evidence, she gasped, reaching for her pocket. The letter. Safe, he assured her, pressing his hand to her wound. All safe now. As darkness edged her vision, Martha found herself strangely calm. Whatever came next, they had stood together, spoken truth to power. The last thing she saw was Hocken's face above her, fierce with a love that had defied every boundary society had erected between them. Martha woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains and the scent of medicinal herbs. For a moment, disorientation clouded her mind before memory returned in a rush. The confrontation, the gunshot, the pain. Her hand flew to her shoulder, finding it heavily bandaged. Easy, a woman's voice cautioned. You'll tear Dr. Simmons' fine stitching. Martha turned carefully to find a matronly woman in a crisp apron arranging flowers by the bedside. Where am I? Silver Creek Boarding House. I'm Agnes Miller, the proprietress. She poured water from a pitcher. You've been our guest for 3 days now. 3 days. Martha struggled to sit up. Where's Hocken? Agnes helped position pillows behind her. Your Apache friend hasn't left your side except when propriety demanded. He's speaking with the marshal now. She offered the water. Caused quite a stir, you two have. Martha sipped gratefully. Sheriff Davis and Mayor Thompson? Davis is dead. Returned fire when the marshal's men shot him. Agnes clucked disapprovingly. Thompson's locked up awaiting trial. Territorial governors sent investigators to Dover Springs based on your evidence. Relief washed through Martha, tempered by sorrow for the lives destroyed by greed. And Hocken's people? The Apache traders who were detained. Released with compensation, I hear. Agnes studied Martha curiously. You care for him deeply, don't you? The Apache. Martha met her gaze steadily. I do. Agnes straightened the bed covers. Must say, watching him tend you these past days. Man has healing hands and a gentle heart. Prayed over you in his language for hours. Before Martha could respond, the door opened. Hocken entered, followed by Marshal Parker. Seeing Martha awake, Hocken's stoic expression softened visibly. Martha Calloway returns, he said quietly. The marshal approached the bed. Mrs. Calloway, glad to see you recovering. Your telegram reached the governor directly after similar reports from Dover Springs. Joseph Barnes sent multiple dispatches corroborating your claims. The evidence we carried, safe and documented. The governors launched a full investigation into the Western Mining Company and their operations throughout the territory. The marshal shook his head admiringly. You've exposed corruption that extends far beyond Dover Springs. What happens now? Martha asked. Justice grinds slow but fine, ma'am. Thompson faces serious charges. The mining company's operations are suspended pending investigation. He glanced between Martha and Hocken. The governor wishes to personally thank you both once you're well enough to travel to the capital. After the marshal departed, Hocken moved to Martha's bedside, taking her hand with uncharacteristic public demonstrativeness. You stepped before gun, he said, voice tight with remembered fear. Why? Instinct, Martha replied simply. I couldn't bear to watch you fall. Agnes discreetly excused herself, leaving them alone. In the quiet room, Hocken pressed his forehead gently to Martha's. Thought I lost you, he murmured. Prayed to all spirits to keep you here. It seems they listened. Martha's uninjured hand rose to touch his face, tracing the worry lines etched deeper than before. A knock interrupted them. Agnes returned, ushering in an unexpected visitor. Nettie, looking travel-worn but triumphant. "Stubborn woman lives," the elderly Paiute declared, approaching the bed. "Good. Much work still to do." "Nettie!" Martha exclaimed. "How did you get here?" "Newspaper man bring me. Come with news." She produced a folded newspaper from her shawl. "Read." The Dover Springs Gazette's headline proclaimed, "Corruption exposed. Truth prevails in mining scandal." Joseph Barnes' byline followed, detailing the conspiracy and the governor's intervention. "Whole town talking," Nettie reported with satisfaction. "Big men fall, truth rises." "And my store?" Martha asked. "Safe. Mayor's order cancelled. Sophia Preston watch over." Nettie's shrewd eyes assessed Martha. "Question is, you want it back?" The question hung in the air, unexpectedly complex. The store had been Martha's entire world, her fortress against loneliness. Now, with new possibilities before her, its hold seemed less absolute. "I don't know," she admitted. Hakan listened silently, his expression unreadable. Martha realized he faced an equally uncertain future, caught between his responsibilities to his people and whatever had grown between them. "Barnes wants statement," Nettie continued. "For newspaper. Governor offer reward for exposing corruption." She cackled suddenly. "Imagine Apache warrior and two old women become heroes. Town that scorned you now hang heads in shame." Martha smiled wryly. "Vindication isn't quite as satisfying as I imagined. Because true victory not in others seeing worth," Hakan said quietly, "but in knowing it yourself." Over the following days, Martha's strength gradually returned. Joseph Barnes arrived, documenting their story for newspapers throughout the territory. Letters came from Dover Springs. Apologies, congratulations, offers of support. Sophia wrote of minding the store faithfully, describing how the town had transformed in Martha's absence. 1 week after the confrontation, Martha sat with Hakan on the boarding house porch, watching the sunset paint Silver Creek in amber hues. Her arm rested in a sling, but the doctor promised full recovery with time. "My people send message," Hakan said after comfortable silence. "Council concludes tomorrow. Chief asks my return to share wisdom of journey." Martha felt her heart constrict. "You'll go then. Must honor obligations." He turned to face her fully. "But return depends on your answer." "My answer." Hakan took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against her skin. "Where Martha Calloway sees her path now. Dover Springs? Territorial capital? Or," he hesitated, vulnerability naked in his eyes, "or way not walked before by woman like you, man like me?" The question encompassed worlds of possibility and obstacle, hope and uncertainty. Martha gazed at their joined hands, different in color and culture, alike in strength and purpose. "When do we leave?" she asked simply. Hakan's smile dawned slowly, transforming his solemn features. "When you strong enough for journey." As stars appeared in the darkening sky, Martha leaned against his shoulder, feeling not the weight of age or convention, but the lightness of a path chosen freely, with eyes and heart wide open. 1 year later. The sign above the door gleamed in the morning sunlight. Calloway and Hakan's Apothecary. Martha adjusted the display of herbs in the window, smiling as she remembered the town council's reaction when she proposed the business name. Dover Springs had come far in a year, but some boundaries remained challenging to cross. Inside, the store had transformed. Traditional medicine cabinets stood alongside shelves of Apache healing supplies. Bundles of herbs hung from the ceiling, some familiar to Western settlers, others introduced by Hakan and eagerly sought after as their efficacy became known throughout the region. The bell jangled as Sophia Preston entered, her engagement ring catching the light. She would marry Joseph Barnes in the spring, their courtship having blossomed amid the town's upheaval. "Mrs. Calloway, the last of your orders from St. Louis arrived on the morning stage." She placed a crate on the counter. And 3 more patients are hoping to see Hakan this afternoon. Martha smiled at the young woman who had become her most steadfast ally. Thank you, Sophia. And please, after all this time, call me Martha. The journey back to Dover Springs had not been simple. After meeting with the territorial governor and receiving official commendations for exposing the corruption, Martha and Hakan had faced the more complex challenge of creating a life together. Hakan had returned to his people first, explaining his intentions to the tribal council. Their reactions had been mixed, some accepting, others concerned about a path no Apache medicine man had walked before. But the chief, respecting Hakan's wisdom and service, had given his blessing for this unprecedented bridge between worlds. Martha had returned to Dover Springs to find her store still standing but her place in the community fundamentally altered. No longer dismissed as too old or irrelevant, she was viewed with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and lingering discomfort at her choices. The town itself had changed in her absence. Mayor Thompson's conviction had revealed deeper corruption than anyone suspected. A new town council, led by progressive members including Joseph Barnes and Mr. Preston, had instituted reforms ensuring greater transparency in governance. The discovery of gold beneath Dover Springs had proceeded legally, with proper compensation to property owners and regulated mining practices. Martha's store, sitting atop one of the richest veins, had made her unexpectedly wealthy, though she valued the vindication more than the money. When Hakan returned 3 months after their parting, they had made their decision. Neither would abandon their heritage or community entirely. Instead, they would build something new, a bridge between worlds, beginning with a healing practice combining their traditions. Not everyone approved. Some Apache remained wary of Hakan's choice of a white partner. Some townspeople still crossed the street to avoid entering a store with an Indian proprietor. But many more came, for healing, for counsel, and gradually, for the simple human connection that transcended boundaries. The back door opened as Hakan returned from gathering fresh plants in the hills. Silver now threaded more prominently through his black hair, matching Martha's own increasingly silver crown. He carried a basket of roots and flowers, nodding respectfully to Sophia. "Spring brings new medicine," he said, placing his harvest on the work table. "Good for fever season ahead." After Sophia departed, Hakan moved behind Martha, his hands resting lightly on her shoulders. "You seem thoughtful today." "I received a letter from Nettie," Martha replied, leaning back against him. "The children at the reservation school love the books we sent." Nettie had found her own unexpected path, teaching Paiute traditions at the government school, while ensuring the children also learned to navigate the white man's world. Her advanced age, once dismissed as irrelevance, now commanded respect as a repository of endangered wisdom. "She asks when we will visit again," Martha added. "When spring makes mountain trails passable," Hakan answered. 2 weeks, perhaps. Their life had found a rhythm, winters in Dover Springs running the apothecary, spring and fall traveling between white settlements and Apache villages offering healing, summers with Hakan's people in the high country, not fully belonging anywhere, yet welcomed in more places than either had expected. The afternoon brought a stream of patients, a rancher with rheumatism, a pregnant woman seeking strengthening tonics, a child with persistent cough. Martha and Hakan worked in seamless partnership, each respecting the other's knowledge, combining traditions when appropriate. As dusk fell and they closed the store, Hakan took Martha's hand, a gesture that had once shocked Dover Springs but now barely raised eyebrows. "Walk before dinner?" he suggested. They strolled to the edge of town where the vast western landscape opened before them. The setting sun painted the distant mountains in shades of amber and rose, a view that never failed to remind Martha how far she had come from the confined expectations that once defined her. "Regrets?" Hakan asked, a question he posed occasionally, always attentive to the sacrifices their unconventional life entailed. Martha shook her head, silver-streaked hair catching the last golden light. "None." "You?" "Only that we did not meet sooner." His thumb traced the lines at the corner of her eye, a caress that had become his signature gesture of affection. "Though perhaps we needed all years before to become who we are together." Martha smiled, thinking of the journey that had brought them here. From scorn to respect, from isolation to connection, from rigid boundaries to a life of possibility. "The silver in your hair shines like stars," Hakan murmured, the compliment as genuine now as when first spoken. Martha reached up to touch the silver threading his own dark hair. "Yours too. Wisdom marks that deepen your beauty." As they turned toward home, their home, created between worlds, Martha Calloway reflected on how being deemed too old had ultimately freed her to become more truly herself than she had ever been in youth, and how being seen, truly seen, by one person could outweigh the blindness of many. Behind them, Dover Springs settled into evening rhythms. Before them stretched a future neither could have imagined before a chance meeting on a dusty street, when an Apache brave had looked past prejudice and age to see the beauty of a woman whose greatest chapter was just beginning.